Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Our program will begin shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Our program will begin shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Our program will begin immediately. Welcome to the 10th Anniversary J Street Conference.
J Street. I found him on JDate. Please welcome Jeremy Ben-Ami.
J Street, I have been waiting for you all my adult life. Thank you for being here. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
You've never been compared to Beyonce, I'm sure.
Well, but there are a few differences, you know.
But recently, J Street, they published a cartoon in which they compare you with Beyonce, and they challenge you that if you're really looking for peace, that you should put a border and then allow the possibility for the two-state solution.
This deal prevents Iran from producing a nuclear weapon. It's good for America, good for Israel, and makes both countries safer and more secure.
This organization's very existence proves that there's no contradiction between being progressive and being pro-Israeli.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the president of J Street, Jeremy Ben-Ami.
Good evening. Good evening and welcome to J Street's 2018 National Conference, a voice for today and a vision for tomorrow. Tomorrow, April 15th, marks 10 years to the day since the official launch of J Street. On the one hand, I can't believe how quickly the years have flown by, and on the other, I'm amazed by all that we've achieved in so short a time. First and foremost, we have established that without a doubt, there is more than one way to be pro-Israel. we have established a voice for those who believe that loving and supporting Israel doesn't mean you have to always agree with whatever the government of Israel says and does. It's a voice that says we can be pro-Israel and pro-Palestinians, and we are tired, and we have had enough of being told it's an either-or choice. It's a voice for the majority of our community that supports two states and diplomacy and opposes occupation and demolitions and creeping annexation. It is a voice for 200,000 people. 200,000 people in chapters all over the country, including thousands of students and over 850 rabbis and cantors. It is a voice that speaks through the largest pro-Israel PAC in this country that this year will support 150 candidates for the House and Senate and raise over $4 million. It's a voice that has earned respect and garnered power. My friends, after only 10 years, we should be very proud that today our voice is being heard. And at this incredible milestone for us, I want to recognize those who've made what we have achieved possible. So I'd like to open the conference with a huge thank you to the incredible J Street staff, who not only have they worked so hard to put this conference together, but they have built this organization from scratch. So I'd like to ask all those who work for J Street and everybody who's ever worked for J Street to please stand up. Let's go. And I'd like the rest of you to join me in a round of applause of appreciation. Next, I want to thank the board of directors of J Street and the incredible leaders from all over the country who volunteer their time, their energy, and their wisdom, and who donate their resources to make J Street's work possible. I also want to thank in particular the 1,200 students who are with us here today. J Street U pushes us every day to focus on what's right, to focus on what's best for the state of Israel, for the Jewish and Palestinian peoples, and for the American Jewish community. Thank you. Our 10th anniversary coincides with the 70th birthday of the State of Israel. Yom Ha'atzmaut will be celebrated this week, and May 15th will mark 70 years since Israel's Declaration of Independence. We're really, really proud to celebrate the miracle of Israel's rebirth, the realization of a 2,000-year dream of the Jewish people to again be a free people in our own land. What our parents and our grandparents built and fought for, we honor and we celebrate. And we pledge not just to help preserve it, but to help strengthen and improve it. Milestones like J Street's 10th and Israel's 70th are points of time for celebration, but they're also times to take stock of the challenges that lie ahead. And my friends, the dangers of this present moment are deadly serious. When it comes to Israel, the starkest challenge is that the one-state reality is fast becoming a true one-state nightmare. We may be marking 70 years of independence this year, but let's not forget that last year we marked 50 years of occupation. Israel is, without a doubt, at a fork in the road, where it either must take the two-state path and remain both Jewish and democratic, or head down the one-state path, where it has to choose to be one or the other. This status quo isn't simply unsustainable, it is cruel, as the suffering and violence in Gaza of the past few weeks demonstrate. A solution that meets the needs of both peoples is urgently needed, and it is the only way out of the cycle of violence that plagues not only the people of Gaza, but those in Israel who live on its borders. What's needed are not provocations like next month's move of the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem or more demolitions and land confiscations on the West Bank. The challenges to Israel, they go beyond the conflict, to the very nature of the state itself. Whether or not it's going to respect all forms of practice of Judaism, will it allow in refugees and asylum seekers? Will it protect key institutions of democracy like a free media, an independent judiciary, or our good friends at NGOs like the New Israel Fund? And here in the United States, I don't think that any of us in this room needs to be reminded of the threats we face under this president to the very heart of our democracy. The demagoguery, the racism, the fear-mongering, the assault on the media, on key institutions of our democracy. This is a moment of real challenge. And let me add a word about last night's military attack in Syria. We are horrified by the crimes against humanity that have been committed by the Assad regime in Syria. The world cannot stand idly by as a leader uses chemical weapons against his own people and kills hundreds of thousands of people with his own hands. Last night's strike, it was limited in scope and it was targeted on sites that were directly tied to the gas attack outside Damascus, and it did have the support of a number of our allies. But a limited tactical strike does not form the basis of a strategy, nor does the legitimacy of the targets alone establish the legality of the action. The Constitution of the United States vests war-making authority in the Congress of the United States, and Congress needs to assert its authority. Congress needs to act. We will be calling on them on Tuesday to act to restrain this president in the coming weeks, so that this president must get the necessary legal authority for any further military action. He must place such action in the context of a larger political and diplomatic strategy, and he must build broader international support for that strategy. We would be wrong to think that the dangers that we face at this moment in history are limited to Israel and the United States. All across the globe, liberal democracy is in retreat. J Street proudly opposes these trends, and we couldn't be clearer in warning of the dangers that President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu pose to their respective countries. But ours is not and should not be a movement built simply on opposition. We must offer a vision for tomorrow. For Israel, our vision is of a thriving, secure state that hasn't had to choose between being Jewish and democratic, precisely because it has ended occupation and realized the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination in a state of their own. It's a vision of a future in which the children and grandchildren of Israelis and Palestinians alike avoid the violence, bloodshed, and tears that have plagued their parents and grandparents for generations. It is a vision of an Israel that lives out the values of the prophets outlined in the Declaration of Independence, most notably a commitment to freedom and justice and peace. We have a vision as well for the United States. That vision is grounded in an unyielding belief in the amazing democratic system that was established by our founders and in the importance of the individual rights that they guaranteed. It's of a United States that is a strong and respected world leader. It plays a vital role in resolving conflicts through diplomacy and negotiations, not causing conflicts. It's a vision of a United States that sees the agreement preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon as a good deal and a model for addressing global conflicts through international cooperation. And it's a vision firmly rooted in the values that are the bedrock of J Street, of this country, and of our people. As a people who have been refugees and strangers in the lands of others, we understand in our bones the importance of offering safety to those in danger and of guaranteeing equality to all, regardless of race, religion, gender, or sexual orientation. That's why we fight for immigrants and against racism, and we battle Islamophobia as we battle anti-Semitism. It is these values and that vision on which we have built J Street over the past 10 years. Our challenge now is to bring that vision to life. And for that, we need to take political power, because it is not enough to lead the opposition. We have to lead the way. J Street's #1 task for the next 7 months is to elect members of the House and Senate who share our values and share our vision and who can block That's how we're going to block an irrational and incompetent president from leading this country to disaster. And it's up to each of you, it's up to each of us to contribute the time, the energy, and the money that you can to ensure that they win. Our partners in Israel and Palestine, they too must work to bring in new leaders who will show the courage of those who've ended conflicts like Sadat and Begin, like Mandela and de Klerk, and like the signatories of the Good Friday Accords in Ireland that are marking their 20th anniversary this weekend. Only when there are leaders ready to take the tough steps necessary to end their conflict will there be an end to occupation, an end to the siege of Gaza, and an end to the threat of terror and violence. The road ahead is not easy, and I know that many here despair in the face of the challenges that we face. But complaining and hopelessness gets us nowhere. Throwing up our hands and walking away only means that our opponents win. If we want things to change, it is on us to bring that change. It is on us to organize and mobilize. Every challenge and every obstacle can be overcome by good people fighting together for a better future. Tonight, we're going to meet some of those people, Israeli, Palestinian, and American, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim, all of them working on the ground in Israel, in Palestine, right here at home to shape that better future. We draw strength from their example and their determination, and as important, they draw strength from us, knowing that there are Americans working alongside them to change the course of history. It may not be 2020 yet, but tonight we have 2020 vision. We can see, you like that? We can see a clear path ahead. We know what we must do in our second decade. We must do our part in this country to get American policy back on track to support Israelis and Palestinians who seek to end their conflict. We must do our part in this country to get American politics back on track and elect those who share our values and vision. And we must do our part in this country to get our American Jewish communal institutions and leaders to speak out and act on the values we hold dear. United, United by our values, inspired by our vision, J Street is ready to help lift the darkness that is pervading our politics today and build a better tomorrow for the generations to come. So let's roll up our sleeves, let's raise our voices. It is time to get to work. Thank you for all that you do, and I'm looking forward to a great conference. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Women's Leadership Forum Steering Committee.
Good evening. At a time when political leaders in Israel promote a worldview at odds with our own, it's difficult not to be filled with frustration, disheartened and angered by the violence, the recriminations, and lack of progress towards peace. We scan the horizon for glimmers of hope. Although the political horizon today may be depressingly bleak, there are powerful forces at work within civil society, radiating the bright light of hope and possibility from the grassroots. They inspire us to strengthen our efforts to bend the arc of history toward justice. In a few minutes, we'll hear from several of these inspiring grassroots leaders. My name is Joanna Goodwin Friedman. I stand here as a representative and member of the Women's Leadership Forum Steering Committee. Joining me are my fellow committee members, Nancy Bernstein, Molly Freeman, and Carol Winograd. All of us are long-time J Street national leaders. We are proud that the Women's Leadership Forum is sponsoring tonight's program. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll continue. The Women's Leadership Forum works within J Street to lift up the voices and visions of grassroots leaders, movements, organizations that are challenging and changing realities on the ground. We publicize human security issues plaguing the region, including the lack of access to clean water and the heartbreaking humanitarian crisis crippling Gaza. We promote the mandate of United Nations Security Resolutions 1325, which states that women should make up at least 50% of all negotiating and peacekeeping teams worldwide. We shine a spotlight. We shine a spotlight on the Women Wage Peace movement and the International Fund for Israeli-Palestinian Peace. Through our web pages, our online discussion group, and leadership briefings, we publicize the work of activists and organizations that are rarely featured on the nightly news. But with more exposure and support, they could substantially increase their impact. Please look for all of us throughout the conference. Let us know if you would like to become more active with Women Wage Peace, or if you would like to join us. Now, it is our privilege to introduce the activists you will meet tonight. Their work crosses ethnic, socioeconomic, political, religious, and geographic boundaries. They build partnerships, trust, and goodwill. They refuse to be diminished by hatred or fear. They unite under the banner of their common humanity. First, you will meet Avital Brown and Etty Livni, representing the Women Wage Peace movement, whose tagline is, "We will not stop until there is an agreement." Founded in the aftermath of the 2014 Gaza war, the Women Wage Peace movement works throughout Israel to engage diverse communities in dialogue about the necessity of achieving a viable resolution to the conflict. Transcending many previously limiting boundaries, these women speak out about how the conflict impacts their communities and their country, and to demand a prominent role for women in shaping their nation's future. Through demonstrations, marches, and protests, the Women Wage Peace movement challenges decision makers to prioritize achieving a just peace agreement. You will meet Huda Abu Arkoub, the regional director of the Alliance for Middle East Peace. ALMEP advocates on behalf of more than 100 people-to-people organizations in the region. Its mission is to secure and scale up funding so members can expand their programs, building trust and coexistence between Israelis and Palestinians. ALMEP advocates worldwide for the International Fund for Israeli-Palestinian Peace. It connects individuals and groups to create a critical mass that live and act in support of peace. And finally, you will meet Ohad El-Hilo and Sally Zagmut, representing Our Generation Speaks. This fellowship and incubator program empowers young Israelis and Palestinians to create high-impact joint ventures. They cooperate across ethnic and political lines to build shared prosperity. Our Generation Speaks provides the education, the coaching, the resources these trailblazers need to launch their joint ventures. Now, it's time to join us in welcoming these visionary change agents. They challenge the status quo, they break down barriers, they demand change, they build trust, they ignite hope, and illuminate a path forward. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Etty Livni and Avital Brown from Women Wage Peace.
Good evening. Hello, everybody. I'm Etty Livni, and I'm honored and delighted to be with you, so many of you, at the opening of J Street 10th Anniversary Conference. I, along with Avital Brown, my friend, here to represent Women Wage Peace, a movement began 3.5 years ago, just by a handful of women after the last war in Gaza, the protective age, saying enough is enough. Today, we number now 35,000 registered members from across the spectrum of Israeli civil society. That number, in proportion to the USA population, would be the equivalent of 2 million people, not a negligible amount. During my time as a Knesset member representing the secular party Shinui, I served on the Security and Foreign Affairs Committee, one of only 2 women among 15 male generals. How did I get to be a member of this committee, a very prestigious committee? Tommy Lapid, who was then the leader of my party, asked me when I came to the Knesset which committee I would like to join in the Knesset. I immediately answered Security and Foreign Affairs. There was silence on the other side of the phone, and then a long laugh. What do you know about security, my dear friend Etty? He asked me. And what do you know? I answered. He hung up the phone. The next day, I became a member of the committee. I believe it is crucial to have civilians, especially women, involved in security decisions. When women influence decisions about war and peace, we can break the endless cycles of violence and bloodshed, like the tragic escalation we are seeing now on the Gaza border. My involvement in politics, especially on behalf of women and peace, taught me that achieving a real lasting agreement, bringing true security to Israeli and Palestinians, would require a broad movement across Israel in order to build support from the ground up and hold our leaders accountable to finding a sustainable solution. So, several friends and myself, we began to envision such a movement, a women's movement for peace. We knew that to be effective, we had to emphasize a lot of quality we cherish: inclusiveness, compassion, looking at the need of the others, and the fact that all of us are mothers. All mothers on all sides feel the same about their children. We consciously decided we would leave behind the burdens of history as well as the blame game. We started to talk to more women, all kinds of women we would never encounter in our day-to-day lives, women whom I previously had no real opportunity to meet. Women I never thought I would consider sisters in a movement for peace. I met Dana from Dimona and Yael from Sderot, both from Moroccan and right-wing backgrounds. Their politics and upbringings were so different from mine, but they, like me, are mothers who just want their children to be safe and are open to looking for different solutions. I met Michal and Tamar, religious women from the settlements, whom I thought would be opposed to what I believe in, only to discover that they too long for a fair solution. I met Gadir and Amal, brave Arab women, citizens of Israel, who were not only willing to join a group of mostly Jewish women, but who are also ready and able to act as an important bridge to Palestinian women in order to advance an acceptable agreement. Today, I work with a team of Women Wage Peace members to convince political leaders at all levels that yes, peace is possible, and that they already have the support of tens of thousands of diverse Israeli women who want them to take immediate steps towards negotiation. Our team is now supplemented with 50 to 100 women who come to Jerusalem. Every week the Knesset is in session to discuss one-on-one with Knesset members the connection between peace, security, and Israel's future. Indeed, every MK now recognizes the persistent, tireless women of Women Wage Peace. During the Knesset Monday plenum, MKs often wave to us from the speaker's podium as Women Wage Peace sits together in the gallery in solidarity. Women who have traveled from all over the country, some with their head covered in hats or scarves, others in hijab, others bareheaded, all wearing white and turquoise, like me. MKs from across the political spectrum have expressed their gratitude aloud for our having returned the word peace to the national conversation. Here is what I can tell you for sure after 3.5 years of activism with women HPs. We Israeli women are learning to collaborate in the struggle to find a way to peace. I know that what we have in common is greater than what separates us. This realization has transformed me. It has made me more tolerant, attentive, and open to new possibilities. We can work, I totally believe that we can work together to achieve a peaceful outcome and a better future. Thank you.
Good evening, J Street. My name is Avital Brown, and I'm a co-founder of a management training company for the high-tech sector. Many of our projects involve connecting Israeli and Palestinian companies. Unlike Eti, politics never interested me. I thought I could live my life quietly, pursue my career, raise my children. But the 2014 war in Gaza woke me up, or rather, shook me up. I had 2 sons and a son-in-law on the front line in Gaza. I can't even begin to tell you what I was going through. Luckily, they all returned home safely, but I then realized that this scenario might be a ritual I'll have to go through every 2 or 3 years. I then said, enough. As an Israeli patriot, as a Zionist, I said no more. There must be another way. This endless fighting does not make sense. It doesn't get us anywhere. As the war ended, I heard there were women who decided to get off the couch and bring an end to this cycle of madness. 1,000 women put on a white shirt, a turquoise scarf, and boarded the train to Sderot near the Gaza border. On that train, we launched a new kind of women's movement, Women Wage Peace. 3.5 years later, not only my entire wardrobe had changed to white, but my whole life has changed as well. I have become an activist and have vowed not to stop until there is an agreement with the Palestinians. Today, I serve as the co-coordinator of the movement strategy team. So I can tell you firsthand that our theory of change involves a strategy that no Israeli peace group has yet proposed. We believe that the need for peace and security does not belong and cannot be monopolized by only one sector. We understand that people from across the political spectrum must join together and together compel our decision makers to end the conflict. By mobilizing more of the political center and right, we can more successfully influence elected officials on all levels, from the Knesset to the Security Cabinet to local government. We have adopted a new language of radical inclusivity, focusing on the existential necessity of reaching a political agreement rather than advocating for any one specific plan. We work together, Jewish and Arab women, religious and secular women, women from Tel Aviv and the periphery, veterans and newcomers, and yes, even women from the West Bank settlements. As you can imagine, this diversity is challenging, but we're learning how to stash away even our most scared ideological position at times for the sake of our common goal, a political agreement to end the Israeli-Palestinian conflict with equal representation of women in every phase of the negotiations. Can women wage peace? You might be, yeah, right. You convinced me. You might be surprised to hear of the ongoing dialogue between secular left-wing women from the kibbutzim up north and women from the settlements in the West Bank. This interaction began when a right-wing settler rabbi saw women wage peace standing at every traffic intersection he passed, holding signs and pictures of Begin, Sadat, and Carter, declaring, "Peace was achieved in the past, it can be achieved again." He stopped, asked questions, and ended up inviting women, many of whom have never crossed the green line before, to visit and speak with settlers' women from the heart about the meaning of home, security, and peace. And the dialogue continues. Okay, so you might be thinking, dialogue is nice, but can women wage peace? Last October, during our massive journey to peace, thousands of Israeli women gathered with 3,000 Palestinian women from the West Bank in a huge tent we constructed in the desert near Jericho. We called it the tent of Sarah and Hagar, the mothers of Isaac and Ishmael. We, their daughters, walked out of that tent vowing to change our long and painful history. We, their daughters, vow to take responsibility for the kind of world we are leaving our children. We vow to make this region safe and prosperous for all of us. The viral video you're about to watch, Prayer of the Mothers, was filmed 2 years ago during our March of Hope. In it, you will also see Huda Abu Arqub, the next speaker tonight, our Palestinian partner and mentor. So can women wage peace? We are encouraged by what Nelson Mandela noticed about the nature of social change. It always seems impossible until it's done. We invite you to join us in doing the impossible. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Huda Abu Arqub from the Alliance for Middle East Peace.
Is this working? My phone here now. مساء الخير. السلام عليكم. First of all, thank you, J Street, for hosting us as a civil society and shining a spotlight on those working every day on the ground to transform the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. A special thank you to the Women Leadership Forum for their ongoing support of inclusive feminist political activism. Yay! My name is Huda Abu Arqub, and I'm the Regional Director of the Alliance for Middle East Peace. And to those who don't know OLMEP, it's a network of over 100 groups working every day in every sector of the society to break out the vicious cycle that separates us and rehumanize the lost generation of the past 20 years. Today, the Alliance for Middle East Peace has three flagship efforts. First, to advocate for and make visible the efforts of the civil society and remove the barriers to the funding of our efforts, to establish an international fund for Israeli-Palestinian peace, just remember that will provide not only millions of dollars to expand and scale the people-to-people work, but will create a formal structure for achieving peace on ground where politics has failed. Finally, and the mission that is closest to my heart as the regional director of the Alliance for Middle East Peace is to support all of our members until we rise as the undeniable voice and collective civil society movement for peace. As well as being the regional director of OLMIP, I stand here tonight as a proud, liberated, free Palestinian woman. Yes. And it's not coming from vacuum. I've seen the power of my father taking leaps of faith in humanity in a situation where his house was taken over by Israeli soldiers, engaging them in an attempt to create a human connection as an equal. I heard for years a story of my grandfather taking a road trip with his Jewish Palestinian neighbor and his Christian Palestinian colleague to Haifa, Beirut, Damascus, and Amman, then back to Hebron when I was not allowed to leave Hebron or Palestine freely. I was raised by a socialist mom who refused to teach in Saudi Arabia, and that's a big deal, while women are not free. I also was raised by two strong grandmothers who challenged political and social realities to secure quality education for their daughters, firmly believing that this will contribute to the liberation of the people of Palestine. Thank you. I read books in dark nights by candlelight, I still do that, to educate myself about a world that is truly free and supports justice for all. I cried all night, hugging for the first time the Palestinian flag that I was not allowed to embrace as part of my identity. I watched a cousin with special needs leave his house to buy cigarettes, ending up with 18 bullets in his body, left bleeding for hours to his death in a town under 24-hour military curfew. I heard my cousins cry out when their father was arrested in the middle of the night. I myself have escaped life-threatening situations time and time again while trying to get to my school or to take my mom to the hospital. Yet, I found 28 reasons not to give up on peace. My 28 nieces and nephews that I am blessed to have, they are the reason why I get up every morning and find a reason to cross the checkpoint to seek partners for peace on the other side of the green line. I simply want to do my best. I simply want to take responsibility and do my best so they don't have to go through what I have gone through to survive and maintain my humanity, because that's what's on stake. Though many can't see past of the media's perverted image of the humans, the holy people who live in the Holy Land. I see hope daily in the midst of darkness. Why? I see thousands of Palestinians using self-restraint while crossing humiliating and dehumanizing checkpoints to get to work in Israel. Each one of them has a reason to be angry and hateful, yet do not give in. For those who seek a Gandhi in Palestine, I see hope in Israelis who break the law to come and stand for justice in South Hills of Hebron. Yes. I see it in Palestinians and Israelis with whom I work who seek an honest, open dialogue internally to sort out the emotional, mental, and political walls that prevent them from reaching their utmost potential as free, liberated human beings. I see Palestinian and Israeli bereaved mothers who transcend over pain to build a stronger front against war, hate, and violence. If Palestinians and Israelis who witness death and loss on a daily basis can melt down walls of oppressive systems and still manage to keep their human dignity, then the world has to step up its game to lift them rather than fail them once again. Yes, we live in a leaderless world. Not just in our region, by the way, but across the world. Should we give up on people? Should we? No. Of course not. We, the people, find ways to liberate ourselves from fear, hate, and anger. Free people know how to create a reason to live and let others to live. Free people know how to reconcile and coexist. How long must we wait for the right time to give the people of Palestine and Israel a chance to claim their liberty and humanity? I think the time is now. In the darkest moments ever, now is the time for feminist, inclusive political activism, championed by girls of Creativity for Peace and women of Women Wage Peace. Now the time is to tap into the human potential that lies within the graduates of dozens of peace-building programs left alone, creating a critical mass that live and act in support of freedom, dignity, justice, and peace. Now is the time to scale our efforts, to move beyond the belief that our work is just a nice afterthought. It's not, we're nice, by the way, we're very nice. But we are in the business of creating resilience, and that's not to be taken for granted. We have to create communities in which our heroes will not have medals of death, but champions of life. I am here to tell you to hold on to our hope, to hold on to your hope in us. Please do, because we don't have the luxury of losing hope. That's not something that we can afford in a conflict zone. Our path may be just a narrow bridge, but we shall not fear. We shall not fear. Our deep commitment to humanity and justice is confirmed daily by women and men who refuse to be victims and refuse to be enemies. We're not each other's victims, we're not each other's enemies. I invite you and implore you to join the children of Jerusalem who state loudly and clearly clearly and proudly that peace begins with me as a child born in Jerusalem. Raise up our community, our voices, our stories, and become part of us and be partners to us. And finally, to the Jewish American community, it's time for you to follow the steps of Rabbi Abraham's Joshua Heschel and march for justice and peace with the today Martin Luther Kings. Thank you and salam.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ohad El-Halo and Sally Zagmud from Our Generation Speaks.
I'm pleased to be here today with you to address J Street, an organization that has accomplished much in support of Israel and the Jewish people, and I don't care what they say, you can be pro-Israel and pro-Palestine at the same time. I know it because I am. I address you today as the founder and CEO of Our Generation Speaks, a program which began in 2015 and is dedicated to the proposition that Israelis and Palestinians can work together to create a more peaceful and prosperous future. How did this happen? My military service introduced me firsthand to the complexities of our region. When I started my studies at Brandeis in 2013, you have to cheer again. I personally witnessed the incredible dedication of much of the American Jewish community to a safe, peaceful, and democratic Israel. I couldn't stand moved. I realized that I had very little knowledge of Palestinians and no opportunities to interact with them unless in uniform. I knew that nothing would change unless we created an infrastructure of hope, an infrastructure of understanding on both sides. Only then could we build trust and finally cooperation. I resolved to do something about it. With the support of Brandeis and former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick, we created a program that brings Israeli and Palestinian entrepreneurs to Boston for 3 months each summer. They live together and they learn about each other's lives and narratives. They study entrepreneurship, they form teams, and they create businesses. Since its inception, we have launched 7 ventures and graduated 46 alumni, all dedicated to working together to change the dynamic in our region. One venture provides highly trained Palestinian software engineers to Israeli high-tech companies, scrambling for such help. Another startup does genetic education and testing of Israeli Bedouins to reduce the incidence of genetic diseases. A third venture brings solar technology to areas in a region that have limited electric power, including Gaza. To date, our companies have raised more than $1 million, and we have made preparations to launch 9 new companies this year. Now, beyond financial success, Our Generation Speaks demonstrates that when people have common goals, when they rely upon each other to feed their families, when they are actual partners, when they work together every single day, they can't help but know each other. And when you truly know another person, hope can replace hate. As the saying goes, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Much has changed in our region in the past 20 years, yet too much remains the same. Israel has the same government in power, still lacking a vision for a shared future. Palestinians still don't have an airport, a passport, or a state, and the Middle East remains the playground of self-interested superpowers who now have greater concerns. I look around me, and I can't see many trees grounded in hope and trust planted by past generations. What have they been doing? It's time for young Israelis and young Palestinians to take matters into their own hands. Ladies and gentlemen, we will plant these trees. We are planting these trees, and not just a few. We need to grow a forest. Young people ended the Vietnam War. Young people will end the gun laws insanity in this country. And as we like to say in our region, inshallah, young people will put an end to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as well. To solve the conflict between us calls for our honesty, and it calls for our engagement. It calls for a realization that the situation is not working for either side. Yet, this conflict is more burdensome on the daily lives of Palestinians. At the same time, it is more dangerous in the long term for Israel's future as a democratic state with a Jewish majority. If we want to think about solving this conflict, we need to remember new old thinking and values, Abrahamic values of compassion and empathy. In the last 60 years, older generations have failed us, Israelis and Palestinians alike. Now is the time for our generation to step forward and to speak up. I've seen the determination of my generation to turn our dreadful situation around. It's a long road, the road for shared trust, but we're not afraid of long roads. And we know we can count on your support. Let us be successful where others have failed. Our future demands it. Thank you all so very much. Thank you.
Everyone. We're living in bubbles, and in our generalizations, stereotypes, and labels, we place people in buckets. Bucket after bucket, so we stop seeing people as people, and we start seeing them as groups. We do it to ourselves, we do it to our enemies, and we do it to people who we perceive as our enemies. But no two people are the same. As human beings, we have a common experience in the world in terms of being human, of being conscious. But we have very particular experiences that give each of us a nuanced perspective on the world. And it's on us, it's on our generation to diagnose what experiences make a certain person's life choices more convenient and help them see themselves out of it. See, the best way to learn isn't by reading books or sitting in lectures. The most important knowledge, I believe, is gained through human interactions, through real experiences. This is why I co-founded Yalla Talk with an Israeli at OGS, to bridge the gap between or even beyond Palestine and Israel, the language barrier that prevents us from understanding the other. Our on-demand, user-friendly mobile application keeps you connected with native speakers across the world in just one click, through interactive and personalized conversations. You don't just learn few words here and there. Instead, you grasp the origin of the phrase. You're able to understand culture, other people's point of views, the way they think, their habits, norms, phonology, tones, syntax, you name it. all through our human interactive experience. It isn't a simple task to build bridges. It takes effort, time, and most importantly, hope. Hope in each other. You see, young Palestinians hold the majority within the Palestinian people, and their narrative is overwhelmed with frustration and absent of hope. Implications from decades of military occupation has imposed geographic restrictions, social fragmentation, and an overall marginalization that has effectively extinguished the prospect of a life that is deemed normal. UNICEF reports that adolescents are becoming more prone to aggression, rebellion, risk-taking behavior, frustration, hopelessness, and withdrawal. Hopelessness. They are, or more like we are, overwhelmingly dissatisfied with our life, and our future is dependent on a positive mentality. A positive outlook is what is missing. Hope is what is missing. And I'm sure everyone here has lost hope at some point. I know I have. I lost hope that one day I can fly out from Tel Aviv airport, or one day I can walk the streets or drive my car through cities without having to carry a permit. But most importantly, I lost hope in the system. But the real question here is, when everybody lets you down, will you still make the decision to lift someone else up? My message here today is be our Yalla Talk beta tester. Start learning Arabic, of course, and give us your feedback. But more generally, my message here today is not to ostracize the other, but rather empathize. Realizing that empathy isn't about putting on someone else's shoe. Instead, putting on someone else's wet socks and taking a really long walk. This kind of empathy allows us to maintain our dignity even when the belligerent berate us. This kind of empathy breeds hope. Enemies hell-bent on our severance will become one of our bestest of friends, because their animus will only make us more compassionate. What empathy really does is allow us to see each other as human. Before we're terrorists or freedom fighters, we're humans. Before we're Celtics or Wizards. Before we're moderate, liberal, or conservative. And it's that humanism that enables us to excavate what's left of hate and eliminate its excessive waste. It's that humanism that Edward Said so eloquently put as the only or final resistance against the inhuman practices and injustices that disfigure human history. So let's make this practical with 3 simple items, because people tend to think in threes. The 3 pyramids, the 3 musketeers, past, present, future, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, you name it. So 3 action items. Empower OGS by raising awareness about the program. Be our Yalla Talk beta tester and share your feedback. Visit the other side, not once for tourism, but twice for the experience. Don't just spend the day strolling down my streets, and instead step so far out of your bubble or your comfort zone so that one day the world will look at you and me creating our own bubble. And it doesn't matter what we call this bubble as long as we're in it together. Because we're human before we're Palestinians or Israelis. Because we're human before we're Christians, Muslims, or Jews. This will be our narrative. This will be our solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. We're not here to restore faith in humanity. We're here to restore humanity in faith. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Meretz Party Chairwoman, Tamar Zandberg.
Hi everyone, good evening and shalom. Being here tonight is a real honor. Thank you Jeremy Ben-Ami, President of J Street, Maud Halperin, and the J Street board, J Street leadership, and J Street U. My friends, being at the J Street National Conference feels like home, and not just because this is not my first time here. It feels like home because the things that I care about and the people that I fight alongside with are always present in this room. I'm talking, for example, about the brave women of the wall, who are not just fighting for their rights, but also teach Israelis like me about the many wonderful faces of Judaism, the richness of which goes way beyond what our school books and religious parties ever presented. I'm talking about the inspiring students of J Street U. Let's hear you again. You guys promote accountability and transparency in your own communities, so the Jewish donors from Cincinnati or Boston can now tell whether their money is used for settlement activities. I'm talking about the many friends from the New Israel Fund. Yeah. Who stand these very days against the most ridiculous, nevertheless dangerous incitement from no other but the Prime Minister of Israel, just because they support those in the front line of the battle against the deportation of thousands of people seeking asylum from Sudan and Eritrea. Friends in the NIF, you are truly the guardians of Israeli democracy, social justice, equality, and human rights. I see here also veterans from the peace movement and young anti-occupation activists. I see civil rights professionals, Jewish feminists. I see Jewish LGBT activists. I see my friends, my people. Dear friends, coming to the US, and especially to this conference at this time, feels like home in another not so very pleasant way. In both our countries, we see these days the same contempt for civil rights, xenophobia, racism and chauvinism, and politics of fear, all starting at the highest level of government. There is a clear alliance between the right-wing camps in Israel and in the US. They sponsor and legitimize each other, both pardoning and even embracing American and European anti-Semites and extreme right-wing populists. It's an alliance that has had and continues to have ever more dangerous consequences for both our countries. These days, it seems Israeli Prime Minister and the American administration are joining forces in trying to destroy the Iran deal, against the repeated warnings of many among both the American and the Israeli military leadership. 15 years ago, it was the then Meretz leader, Yossi Sarid, who stood alone in saying that the war in Iraq will be bad for Israel. Today, as the new leader of Meretz, I come here with a clear message. Abandoning the Iran deal would move us closer to a nuclear Iran instead of further away, which would pose a grave danger to the State of Israel, the region, and the world. In the same time, we cannot accept military presence of Iran, the only country in the world that threatens to destroy Israel on our northern border. Every Israeli, like any man and woman around the world, is horrified that the Assad regime uses chemical weapons against its own civilians just a short 100 kilometers north of Kiryat Shmona. Last night, we saw a clear message that the United States, the United Kingdom, and France cannot accept that either. Dear friends, I grew up with a feeling that peace is just around the corner. It was in the 90s. Only to find out that now it feels further away than ever. I grew up thinking that the struggle for civil rights belongs to the past, only to find out that the notion that all men and women are created equal is just the first step in the journey to equality. I grew up as a young girl, knowing that when I grow up, I could be and do whatever I choose, only to find out that some people, be they rabbis or politicians, still think they can decide for me. I thought about that yesterday as I was walking down the halls of the wonderful National Museum of African American History and Culture. After slavery, liberty was not fully achieved. The brave men and women fighting for their rights tackled segregation. Then came the civil rights movement, and then Black Lives Matter. In short, we find out that history isn't always a straight line. Sometimes it has curves, sometimes even U-turns. The arc of a moral universe is long, taught us Martin Luther King, murdered 50 years ago this month, but it bends towards justice. Dear friends, there is a battle between the ideas of democracy, civil rights, and liberalism versus a new form of authoritarian thinking fueled by populist anger. All over the world, the idea of a liberal democracy is under challenge, sometimes under attack. It's a struggle that takes place in Tel Aviv and in Charlottesville, in Washington, D.C., and in the West Bank, and none of us can win it on our own. Every year we meet, whether here at the J Street Conference or in Israel, in one of the J Street missions, and we talk about our mutual support and help for one another. Today, we are not just supporting each other. Today, we are standing together. Today, we are in an unprecedented political moment when the very things we need to change about Israel have become the same ones you resist and fight for here in the US. Today, it's clear that the battle against occupation and the battle for racial equality are the same fight. Today, it's clear that the fight against forced deportation in the US and in Tel Aviv is the same fight. Today, it's clear that the equality for people of color in America and for Palestinian citizens and Mizrahi Jews in Israel derives from the same principles. Today, it's clear that we have a shared interest in a healthy, sustainable environment and natural resources, and also in maintaining our social media democratic and our privacy protected. The fight for democracy in Washington and in Jerusalem is the same fight. Netanyahu and Trump, they both try to call us unpatriotic. Here is what they are missing. True patriotism is not in their hands, but true patriotism is here, in this room, tonight. When the alt-right embraces Israel, that is not a badge, that is a badge of shame, not a badge of honor. Dear friends, the fight for peace and against occupation is true patriotism. Feminism is the true love of Israel. This is the true Ahavat Israel. Civil rights is the true love of people, is the true Ahavat Adam, like we say in Hebrew. Friends, in the past 15 years, Israeli progressives were told and again that if we just move a little bit to the right, we can return to power. And when that didn't work, perhaps a little bit more. I know this is the same case with progressive politics here as well. And I know we suffer defeat after defeat. Some of our friends in the opposition still think this is the right way even today. They think that the voters moved to the right, and if we want to win them, we have to go right after them. Here is what they are missing. They did not move to the right. They are waiting for our alternative. They are waiting for our leadership with a clear, loud, proud truth, not a pale imitation. We represent not a small and weak minority. We represent a vast majority, both in Israel and in the US. Friends, most Israelis support the two-state solution. Most Israelis support civil marriage and LGBT adoption rights. Most Israelis would like to see just allocation of resources and a strong and effective health, education, and welfare systems. Most Israelis oppose the asylum seekers' deportation and stood together against it. Only last week, following the attack against the New Israel Fund, Israelis donated 1 million shekels to show their support. This is an historic change. There is nothing more patriotic than a joint struggle for our democracies, and this is what we are doing here tonight together. In the last 3 Fridays, Israelis have followed the events around the border with the Gaza Strip, worried that they might deteriorate to another round of violence like we experienced 5 times in the last decade. I visited that southern part of Israel twice in these 3 weeks. Our message is not only to act with restraint and according to the law during the events, but also that it is both our interest and our moral duty to lift the siege over Gaza and to end the occupation on the Palestinian people. This is not just a security or a demographic issue. It's a moral affront to everything we should stand for. It corrupts our institutions and makes our public discourse cynical, violent, and dehumanizing. Dear friends, I stand here tonight representing a broad political camp in Israel. I have no fear, only hope. We are going to be clear on our principles and influential on our politics. We will fight for a center-left coalition that will replace Netanyahu and his extreme government. If Labour or Yesh Atid leaders have a chance to form a decent government, we will support them. Moreover, we would lead the progressive camp in Israel, so it will be possible for them to form such a government. This is a moment in history when we march from the protest in the streets into the halls of power and make our vision into a new reality. I was elected to be the chair of Meretz to do just that. We will be the pillar at the front of the camp. We will pioneer our way from political marginalization to influence and innovation. We will move back to the heart of Israeli politics, because saying the right things isn't enough. We will transform massive support for our values into a mass movement to the polls on election day. This is our job. We deserve, friends, we deserve a government that we can be proud of. We deserve a government that will represent our values. We deserve a government that will end the occupation and promote peace. We deserve a government that will make Israel a true home for every Jew around the world and a true home for every Palestinian citizen. We deserve a government that we can be proud of, and we are the ones that are going to make it happen. Thank you, and have a very successful conference.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the J Street U Student Board and the President of J Street U, Zoe Goldblum.
Hello, everyone. My name is Zoe Goldblum. I'm a senior at Stanford University, and I'm the president of J Street U's National Student Board. I'm thrilled to be here with you tonight as one of over 1,200 student attendees. The incredible student turnout at tonight's conference is a testament to the continuing growth and strength of J Street U, one of the largest student movements in the country. We are proud to stand by all of you in the fight for our future. We are raising our voices to tell our communities and our elected officials that young pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian, pro-peace Americans demand bold leadership and bold action to build a better future for Israelis and Palestinians and to end the occupation. As the future leaders of our community and of our country, we're making clear that we refuse to accept bigotry and hate or to stay silent in the face of attacks on democracy. We're making clear that we refuse to accept American leadership that abandons the two-state solution, empowers the extreme right, and promotes conflict over diplomacy. We're building a powerful network that is ready to stand with leaders who fight for our values and ready to make sure that the American Jewish and pro-Israel communities stand on the right side of history. We're so glad that you're here to fight alongside us. To show exactly who we are and where we come from, my fellow student board members will now lead J Street U's roll call.
Hi, I'm Eva Borgwart, J Street U Student Board, J Street U Student Board Vice President representing the Northwest region. I'm proud to represent the 255 students from the Northwest, with Stanford University bringing the most at 57 students.
I'm Ben Sharp, J Street Student Board Vice President representing the Southwest region. I am so proud to represent 100 students from the Southwest, with Chapman University bringing the most students with 32.
I'm Brent Efron, J Street Student Board Vice President for the Midwest region. I'm so proud to be representing 198 students from the Midwest, with the University of Chicago bringing the most at 49.
My name's Ben Gelman. I'm J Street U's Vice President for the Southeast region on the National Board, and I am so proud that there are 275 Southeast students in the audience tonight, with George Washington University bringing the most at 43.
My name is Andrew Mushin Goldblatt. I'm the J Street U Vice President for the Northeast region. So honored that we have 166 students from the Northeast here tonight, and 31 from my own university, Tufts.
My name is Shira Kraus, and I am the J Street Student Board Vice President for the Mid-Atlantic region. I'm so excited to be representing 220 students from the Mid-Atlantic, with the most from Hunter College at 63.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of the American Federation of Teachers, Randy Weingarten.
So the good news is there's not a million speakers after me. So you're wondering why I'm here tonight. For me, it's an honor to be here. I've been here all night. The speakers have been awesome. The activists who represent a new generation who are not afraid to pursue justice and peace. And speaking of justice, the 2018 elections have taken on an urgency I have never experienced in my lifetime. It's not simply a fight for fairness or justice or the policies we champion for working folks and their families. We must be a check and balance for our democracy and for a society that is safe, welcoming, and sane. We must fight the anti-democratic, nativistic, racist, incompetent, oligarchical authoritarianism and cruel instincts and actions of a president and his cronies and associates who simply want an intolerant, divisive society and a return to the Gilded Age. This is, whether you are in J Street or the AFT, a which side are you on moment. Now, that statement, which I happened to write on Martin Luther King's birthday weekend, is plastered to the door in my office, and it's a sentiment that guides my head and my heart. And friends, I suspect from the reaction I just got is now you know why this American labor leader is on the J Street stage tonight. Because, in large part, the fight in America is the fight in Israel. And while the words I just said may be different, the sentiment is similar to everyone who is engaged in J Street. We believe in America, and we believe in Israel. But democratic norms and institutions are under fierce attack in both countries we love. And one of the struggles that binds us, a struggle that gets more difficult by the day, is how to maintain the idea, the dream of peace and justice for Israelis and Palestinians, for an Israel and a Palestine that exists side by side, two states for two people. Let me talk to the Israelis in the room for a moment, because you are the activists and the voices for justice and peace, for economic justice, for racial justice. And I am in awe of your energy and for all of these years, for not completely giving in to despair, for maintaining a sense of humor and patience, for doing the work you do every day to make things better, even while the rest of the world ignores you and sometimes our progressive allies condemn you. I was so pleased to hear the new leader of Meretz member of Knesset, Tamar Zandberg. And I promise you, we didn't compare speeches. May your social justice lens guide you through your years of activism. And then there were the grassroots activists. Yeah, we can clap for her. And then there were the grassroots activists in the previous panels who worked tirelessly against tremendous odds to create a nation and a place in the world where we see our values reflected in reality. From the Israeli Jews and the Palestinian women, from Women Wage Peace to the activists trying to stop Israel from destroying Palestinian villages, to, frankly, those awesome students who we just saw. I try never to miss a J Street conference. But it is the activists that we saw on this stage tonight. They are the front line, and we owe them a debt of gratitude. And speaking of someone else we owe a debt of gratitude to, that is Jeremy Ben-Ami. And Jeremy, he will hate that I said this about him. He leads us in righteous battle, always finding the path. And I, who have had to be in many battles, I take great comfort to work side by side with him in these tumultuous times. Because make no mistake, my friends, we are in a global battle for justice, for the values we believe in. We are here to call out and to change a right-wing populist government with a leader who thrives on hatred and division, who mocks and attacks the press, who sees the strangers among us as a danger to be feared and mistreated, not as fellow humans. Which country am I speaking about? The truth is, Israel beat us to it with a right-wing leadership years before we had Donald Trump, before right-wing populists captured leadership in Europe. But here we are, and the similarities are abundant. And frankly, I'm not sure when it comes to Bibi Netanyahu and Donald Trump, I don't know who's imitating who. We all know Trump's Twitter habits, but what about Bibi using social media to attack organizations like the New Israel Fund, or to promote the same xenophobic anti-immigrant attacks we see Trump launch to keep his base happy? And I don't know about you, but after Netanyahu's many attacks on the New Israel Fund, my partner, now wife, Sharon Kleinbaum, we decided to double down on our support for NIF. And frankly, we designated them as one of the organizations we asked our friends and families to support on the occasion of our marriage. Yes, the labor leader did marry the rabbi. But the ways American Jews can support progressive values in Israel is to support the groups that support these values. The groups you saw on this stage tonight, plus B'Tselem, Breaking Silence, ACRI, J Street. That is what we can do. And just think about this. How is it that Israel is carrying out the same anti-immigrant policies, attacking asylum seekers with venom that we see now in Hungary and Poland? Israel, the state that was born out of the Holocaust, the state that next week will celebrate its 70th anniversary. Yes, Israel is a young state. It's a state with growing pains. But that is what we need to do to provide the accountability that means never again for all of us. And now, as we meet, the tensions between Israel and Gaza have entered their third week. And let me be clear, while Israel has a right to defend itself on its southern border, it must do everything in its power to ensure that unarmed, peaceful protesters, be they Israelis or Palestinians, are not harmed. The people of Gaza need a just solution. The status quo can't continue. There must be a return to a serious two-state negotiation, something that may seem out of reach at this moment, but we must never stop reaching. So how, my friends, does that happen? Yes, we can pray, we can advocate, but clearly there's no magic wand. What we can do, what is crucial, is to strengthen our cross-continental and cross-generational coalition that promotes social justice across the U.S. and Israel. And that is what the AFT has tried to do, to strengthen the ties between my union and social justice activists and workers in Israel. Our strategy, I know this may surprise you, has been to support progressives in their work in Israel, just like we do in the United States, to strengthen our bonds with our broader communities, to enlarge the tent, as Isaiah said. So we fight against polarization and hate. At the same time, we build relationships and community. That is why we fell in love with the Hand-in-Hand schools in Israel. Hand-in-Hand's mission is to create an inclusive Israel through a network of integrated bilingual schools with Jewish and Arab students and staff throughout 6 schools in the country. We partner on teacher training and support. We focus on the respect. We strive for U.S. children, parents, and teachers, whether they be in Puerto Rico, San Antonio, and New York City. The same respect that every school child must have, respect for culture, for identity, for learning. And think for 1 second right now just how much those teacher walkouts have shown that public support for public education in the United States is alive and well. And in Israel, as well as the United States, all children, whether Jewish, Arab, Black, white, Native, Hispanic, deserve classrooms with all the opportunities afforded by public education without prejudice or preference. Teacher to teacher, child to child, AFT keeps working with the Hand-in-Hand schools so that they can help make Israel a more equal, just society. And that's not our only connection. We've also developed cross-union trainings with the activists at the Social Economic Academy. And I want to give a shout out to Omer Schechter, who is here, who is an organizer for the Israeli Medical Residents Union. Omer, where are you? I know you're here somewhere. The Israel Medical Residents Union was part of a delegation last year where the AFT, SEA, and community organizers shared strategies together, learning together how to promote economic justice, because Israel and America happen to share another distinction, the bleak distinction of being 2 of the most unequal societies in the world. The US is number 3 amongst OECD countries. Israel is number 5. Efforts to erode Israel's once proud social democratic economy have resulted in a society of the very rich and those who struggle to get by. And this severe gap in income in Israel is one of the reasons why politicians like Bibi Netanyahu, helped by his pal Sheldon Adelson, uses polarization and fear to try to further divide working families, turning Israel into a tribal nation. secular Jews against Haredim, Mizrahi against Ashkenazi, Tel Aviv against the periphery. And Bibi thinks it's just fine to agitate against Arab citizens who comprise 21% of the nation. These fierce divides are hard to bridge, but we must. We must look for those bridges. We must look for those openings. We must reach out. And frankly, it ain't so different. I know my English teachers would have hated I said that. From what the Koch brothers, the DeVos family, and what Shelley Adelson does in the United States, pitting red states against blue states, new workers against seniors, new immigrants against not so new immigrants, gay versus straight, anti-Muslim fear-mongering, the fear of the other, to attack voting rights, public education, labor rights, to try to eviscerate the movements that create a better life. And while we in the United States have a lot to learn from our Israeli colleagues, something is changing in this country. We have become a rallying nation, and I am hopeful that the age of passive resignation is over. Despair is not a strategy, as Ruth Messenger often teaches us. From the streets to the schools to the ballot box, Americans are joining together in the largest surge of collective courage, idealism, and condemnation of injustice in my lifetime. In recent weeks, hundreds of thousands of students around the country have protested gun violence. Dreamers in Texas and Washington, D.C. have stood against deportation from the only country they know. School employees in West Virginia and Oklahoma and graduate workers in Illinois have waged successful walkouts for school resources and for pay. Civil rights activists went back to Memphis after or during or for the 50th anniversary of the assassination of MLK to once again say, we need to fight for justice and we need to fight for voting. I can go on and on and on. Democrat Connor Lamb won a seat in a longtime ruby red Republican congressional district in Western Pennsylvania, proudly crediting his support from unions as he said, that is the fight for basic dignity and social justice. This, my friends, is what democracy looks like. When our president and our Congress fail to make our schools or communities safer, when they govern for the wealthy, when they govern for the few, it is we, the people, particularly young people, who are getting up and stepping out, and that is what we need to do this November. I love it. Like the union movement, never again, 55 strong, Black Lives Matter, united we dream, and time's up. They are bringing people together to do what we can't achieve alone. They're confronting formidable adversaries, groups like the National Rifle Association, which attacks any and all common sense gun safety measures, and frankly, which is now going after the AFT and me personally, and I wear it as a badge of honor. Groups funded by the Kochs, the DeVosses, and other right-wing billionaires who want to gut public education, public services, and the labor movement. It's no exaggeration to say that we are fighting for the souls of two nations, Israel and the United States. We are fighting to defend democracy against tyrants who, though elected in a democratic process, have little regard for democracy and who aim to solidify their personal gain at the expense of public welfare. In the last decades, we have seen a change in how authoritarian regimes typically replace democratic ones, not by military coup, but rather through a democratic process. So, my friends, whether our democracies survive here and in Israel, whether our fundamental values of pluralism and tolerance and the rule of law survive, it depends on us. So I leave you with this. We must repair our democracies. We must engage in elections. We must fight for a better world. We must promote diversity and tolerance. No one can sit on the sidelines. We cannot shrink from this critical moment. These November 2018 elections are the most important in our lifetimes. They will impact democracy at home and abroad. They will influence U.S. domestic and international priorities. And if you care about Israel or you care about anything in the U.S., you must vote and make your voices heard. As Martin Luther King said, he preached, our weapon is our vote. So, whether you believe in Israel, whether you believe in the United States, whether you believe in justice, in peace, in a future, we need to be there voting in November. We must not give up hope. Justice is at our side. Go from a rallying nation to a voting nation, and we will turn this around. Are you ready, J Street? Are you ready, J Street? Are you ready?
Under the powerful influence of the settlement movement, the Israeli government has stepped up a process of creeping annexation in the West Bank. This process is entrenching occupation by expanding settlements and demolishing Palestinian communities that stand in their way. These demolitions severely undermine the two-state solution. Prime Minister Netanyahu fully supports this policy, and the Trump administration has condoned it by looking the other way. In the face of this crisis, the student leaders of J Street U refuse to stay silent. To stand up for our values and a better future, we launched a major campaign. Stop demolitions, build peace. Across the country, J Street U students are raising awareness about the devastating human and political costs of demolitions. Each of J Street U's 6 regions has partnered directly with a different Palestinian community under the threat of demolition, striving to raise awareness of the challenges faced by the residents of places like Susia, Khan al-Ahmar, and Al-Khair as they fear the destruction of their homes, schools, and clinics. By holding educational events, hosting Palestinian activists, raising funds for local projects, and calling on members of Congress to take action, we've begun to mobilize an exciting new movement advocating for a two-state solution and against occupation. The campaign is already making waves. On a growing number of campuses, college Democrat chapters and a diverse coalition of progressive groups have formed exciting new coalitions with J Street U to oppose demolitions and champion peace. The Stop Demolitions, Build Peace campaign has helped the pro-Israel, pro-peace movement put the issue of demolitions on the map for elected officials and Jewish communal leaders. Our leaders are listening. Prominent members of Congress have echoed our call on the Israeli government to bring an end to creeping annexation and stop undermining the two-state solution.
I just left Susia, and I have to tell you that before that trip, I never even used the word occupation before. It really sunk in when I saw on the ground what it means. And I am so grateful to all of the students that are trying to bring to the attention of Americans, of the world, how unfair this is, how unjust, how inhuman it is.
Communities are in danger, and Israel's Jewish and democratic future is at stake. We're stepping up our work, and we need your help. Join us today in our fight to stand up to the settlement movement, stop demolitions, and help build a peaceful future for Israelis and Palestinians.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome J Street U leaders Ben Gelman, Taylor Underko, Matan Arad Neiman, and Susia spokesperson Nasser Nawaja.
My name is Taylor Underko, and I'm the Southwest Regional Co-Chair of J Street U. J Street U is thrilled to have brought over 1,200 students to conference this year. We're feeling extremely energized by the work we've been doing, and we're so excited to share that with you. In the fall, we launched our Stop Demolitions, Build Peace campaign, a new campaign to defend a two-state solution, oppose creeping annexation by the Israeli settlement movement, and stand with vulnerable Palestinian communities in the West Bank. The Israeli government's ongoing demolition and eviction of Palestinian towns in the West Bank destroys communities and endangers Israel's democratic and Jewish future. Led by J Street U, this initiative is rallying the American Jewish community and our elected leaders to push back against the demolitions. In order to grow our campaign, we have built partnerships between J Street U regions and West Bank communities that are under threat of demolition. My region, the Southwest, has partnered with the Palestinian Bedouin community of El Khair. Residents there have communicated to us that they need increased international awareness and attention, and so the village often has international organizations that stay overnight to protect it, which has helped it remain standing. In an effort to bring attention to their situation, my chapter, J Street U Chapman, organized a series of sleep-ins in our college's Humanities Hall. During the sleep-ins, we taught student and faculty attendees about our campaign and about the situation in El Khair. We also invited a lead activist and artist from the village, Eid Hathlin, to participate in a speaking tour throughout the Southwest. Eid, who's actually joining us this weekend in DC, visited our schools to share his experiences with us this past week. Being able to hear from him firsthand deeply moves students and faculty and has encouraged them to continue supporting our effort. We are grateful to partner with these communities in order to support their right to remain in their homes and to raise awareness about how demolitions and creeping annexation are undermining the prospects for peace.
My name is Matan Arad Neiman, and I am a Mid-Atlantic Regional Co-Chair for J Street U. When I arrived on campus this fall to start my first year at Haverford, I was distraught. With Trump in the White House and a peaceful resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict seemingly very far out of reach, I was both helpless and hopeless. But thanks to the Stop Demolitions Build Peace campaign, I can see a clear role for myself and other students like me to oppose the dangerous politics of demolitions and creeping annexation and preserve the future of a two-state solution. In the first year of our chapter's existence, we've created meaningful change on Haverford's campus, including by building a coalition with the Haverford College Democrats. Over the past few months, J Street U chapters across the country have created these types of partnerships with other progressive organizations. On an even larger scale, the statewide College Democrats of California, Illinois, and Washington State, my home state, have endorsed and partnered with our campaign. These endorsements These endorsements have made clear to our members of Congress and our community leaders that we want them to act in defense of vulnerable communities facing demolition. And we have seen some important action. In November, 10 U.S. senators, led by Dianne Feinstein and Bernie Sanders, sent a groundbreaking letter to Prime Minister Netanyahu, which J Street and J Street U proudly advocated for, stating their opposition to demolition and creeping annexation. This week, a similar letter to the Prime Minister was circulated in the United States House of Representatives by Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky and Congressman John Yarmouth. On Tuesday at our National Advocacy Day, our movement will be on Capitol Hill urging our members of Congress to add their names to the letter. One of the communities mentioned in these congressional letters is Susia, where demolition could move forward at any moment. This past year, I've gotten to know Nasser Nawaja, the spokesperson of Susia, both at J Street U events in the US and also last month when I visited his community. Nasser is a South Hebron Hills field researcher for B'Tselem, where he has monitored and documented demolitions and displacement for over a decade. Born in Susia, Nasser lives there with his wife and 3 children. In addition to being the community's spokesperson, he helps represent it in legal proceedings. He is an incredible advocate for his neighbors, for his family, for his people, and for peace. We have the privilege of having him here tonight to speak with us about his fight for his home. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Nasser Nawaja.
مساء الخير للجميع. Dear friend, dear J Street, thank you very much for giving me and my community this important chance. I am very honored to be here today and to have the chance to give a talk about Palestinian Susia and Area C. I was born in 82 in a cave in my village of Susia. The same years, the Israelis began building the settlement of Susia, stealing the land of our family. In 86, the Israeli army surrounded our village and forcefully displaced us. My father carried me in his arms while we were leaving our home and everything in it. My father believed we would come back to our home after a few days, but until today it didn't happen. We had to start all from over again from nothing, building a new cave and water system on our agricultural land next to original village. Since then, our village was demolished 7 times, and even today our village is under threat of demolition, which of course put a huge pressure on our whole community. Today our village is surrounded by the settlement of Susia, the outpost placed in our original village, and the Israeli military base. We have restriction over the access to most part of our land. Despite the fact that we have papers from the Ottoman time proving our ownership. We live under constant pressure from the harassment and from the risk of the bulldozer coming in any moment. When I look to my 3-year-old daughter, I fear that she will experience same forceful displacement as I did. So maybe you are thinking, what can we do? I have 3 suggestions for you. 1, encourage your congressman and senator to speak about our urgent situation in Susia and in Area C. 2, talk about Susia and what is happening in Area C in your community for people to know more about it. 3, come to visit us and see for yourself what's going on. Sometimes this is the best way to understand the situation on the ground. My future, the future of my family, and the one of my community is in Susia. No matter what, we will resist and keep our land alive. With your help, justice will finally shine over a field, over home, over future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nasser. It's an honor to work alongside you in support of your community and for a better future. My name is Ben Gelman, and I'm the Vice President for the Southeast Region on J Street U's National Student Board. Together in the coming days, we have the opportunity to learn more about the issues of home demolitions, settlement expansion, and creeping annexation, and the threats they pose. Throughout the conference, J Street U is hosting several sessions to provide more information about our Stop Demolitions, Build Peace campaign and ways to get involved. We invite you all to join us. We are also going to take action together to say no to home demolitions and yes to peace and a two-state solution. On Monday at 4:45 p.m., everyone is welcome to join as J Street U drops off over 1,000 student-signed letters at the Israeli embassy. We are making clear our opposition to home demolitions, and we're calling on the Israeli government to ensure that these Palestinian communities remain intact. If you want to support our campaign right away, you can purchase one of our custom-designed Stand with Susia posters in the lobby outside after tonight's program concludes. The proceeds of these sales will go towards Comet ME, an environmental NGO that supports sustainable infrastructure in West Bank communities that are denied access to clean water and electricity. We can and we must work to change facts on the ground right now in order to preserve a two-state solution for Israelis and for Palestinians. We must raise our voices so that our friends like Nasser can raise their children in peace and security in the only homes they have ever known. Please join us. Thank you and good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending the opening night of the J Street Conference. Don't forget to tag your pictures on social media using hashtag JStreet10. We look forward to sharing an impact-filled day tomorrow. Thank you and good night.